Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Suresh Kumar Turka from Government College Bheria, Pihova, Kurukshetra. Today we are going to discuss on the topic comparative HRM practices of the paper International Human Resource Management. Dear students, after completing this module, you will be able to understand the meaning and nature of comparative HRM practices. To know about the human resource planning, recruitment and selection, training and development, compensation and benefits and performance appraisal. Then we will be able to know about the comparative HRM practices across nations. The growth in international trade and globalization has encouraged firms to expand their operations worldwide, which has resulted in the emergence of new markets such as China, India, Southeast Asia and Latin America. This trend has also been accompanied by an increased level of competition amongst firms at both national and international level. The challenge of managing a workforce worldwide with different cross cultural skills, competencies and demographic characteristics means that managers can no longer rely on traditional HRM models for different countries. Many firms underestimate the complexities involved in international operations, and there is some evidence to suggest that business failures in the international arena may often be linked to poor management of human resources. Western academics and practitioners have thus moved from traditional international human resource management issues to the area of comparative human resource management. In order to maximize cross national management capabilities, there is need to understand how employees in different national settings respond to similar concepts within their particular functions. An international human resource manager also needs to address the challenges due to cross cultural differences, global competition, language and political differences when posted at international level. Apart from the different intensity level of human resource activities and strategic coordination of different business units, both domestic and international human resource management share same major activities of the human resource management. In addition, an international human resource manager also needs to understand the degree of soft or hard human resource management present in the home base and foreign subsidiaries. Now, we are going to discuss the comparative HRM practices. International human resource management has been defined as HRM issues, functions, policies, practices that results from the strategic activities of multinational enterprises or corporations. It deals principally with issues and problems associated with the globalization of capitalism. It involves the same elements as domestic human resource management, but it is more complex to manage in terms of the diversity of national contexts and types of workers. The emphasis is on the multinational corporations' ability to attract, develop and deploy talented employees in a multinational settings and to get them to work effectively despite differences in culture, language and locations. International human resource management tends to moderate the impact of national culture and national employment practice against corporate culture and practices. Comparative human resource management, on the other hand, is a systematic method of investigation that seeks to explain the patterns and variations encountered in cross national human resource management rather than simply describe human resource institutions and practices in different societies. According to comparative human resource management literature, different national business systems arise from differences in specific historical, cultural and institutional heritage in certain countries. Comparative differences occur due to decisive historical events such as the process of industrialization or due to the legacy of pre-modern forms of social organizations. Hofstede in 1980 adopted the culturalist perspective, where he argued that national business styles emerge due to ingrained cultural attitudes and mental schemes. He described cultural under 5 dimensions, which are power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance and long term orientation. Human resource management practices differ between nations due to the presence of specifically national institutions such as education, banking services or state legal support. Comparative HRM practices. The first base for the comparative HRM practices is the human resource planning. Human resource is the most important asset of an organization. Human resource planning are the important managerial function. It ensures the right type of people in the right number at the right time and place who are trained and motivated to do the right kind of work at the right time. There is generally a shortage of stable persons. The enterprise will estimate its manpower requirements and then find out the sources from which the needs will be met. Human resource planning in USA, United States of America. Employment in the United States federal government civil services is regulated by several laws, including the Civil Service Reforms Act of 1978. Fixed term employment is allowed and contractors are governed by both public and private legislation. There are no guarantees in favor of private legislation. There are no guarantees in favor of lifelong employment, and most public employees are not granted the right to strike. In USA, human resource leaders are also included as member of the board or equivalent top executive team. Human resource management strategies are also being formalized in writing. There is a clear distinction between the human resource functions and line management in the responsibilities for human resource policy decisions, combined with high reliance on technology based systems, and the organizations are increasing the size of their workforce and are also reporting higher level of employee turnover than in recent years. Human resource planning in China. Human resource planning in China was mainly executed by a centrally planned job allocation system before the end of 1970s. Rather than in charge of human resource planning, the personnel department was in charge of administration, discipline and personal files, etc. In the corporate sector, managers had no autonomy to decide staff recruitment, selections and reward policies. Such decisions have to be approved only by the government. With the transformation of Chinese economy since 1980s, labor management has started to shift towards a labor market. One of the reform is gradual relaxation of state control over economic planning, including human resource planning. The concept of competition and market is acknowledged and more autonomy is given to corporate level. Human resource planning in India. Indian human resource management system is more market oriented than China. In Indian corporate sector, managers have autonomy to decide staff recruitment, selections and other human resource policies. Human resources are organized in response to business demands and labor market conditions. Departmental heads propose manpower requirements every year. It is reviewed by the respective divisional head and by the president along with the deputy general manager of the human resource development program. The company reviews the manpower needs periodically. Surplus manpower is transferred to other units after consultation with the employee concerned. So, in Indian large companies, the top management as well as the human resource department is responsible for the manpower planning. In this exhibit, comparative HRM practices and their regions for cross national differences has been shown, and these regions are due to the financial system, labor market system and regulation, industrial relation system, education and training system, and the welfare state. The second base for comparative human resource management practices is the recruitment and selection. As we all know, recruitment is concerned with reaching out, attracting and ensuring a supply of qualified personnel and making out selection of requisite manpower both in their quantitative and qualitative aspects. It is the development and maintenance of adequate manpower resources. This is the first stage of the process of selection and is completed with placement. Finding the interested candidates who have submitted their profiles for a particular job is the process of recruitment, and choosing the best and most stable candidates among them is the process of selection. It results in elimination of unstable candidates. It follows scientific techniques for the appropriate choice of a person for the job. In this exhibit, the global differences and similarities in the HR practices are shown. As we are seeing that there are again main four bases are there for the differences at the global level, and these bases are the personal selection procedures, purpose of performance appraisal, training and development practices, and finally the use of pay and other incentives, which is a part of the compensation. Recruitment and selection in United States of America. The recruitment that does take place is predominantly through in-house activities such as internal hires and posting on company websites with emphasis on attracting minority groups. The use of commercial jobs website is also increasing in America. In contrast, other selection methods like including application forms, references and one-on-one interview among others are being used less frequently than in the past. The use of part-time work is decreasing while teleworking and shift work are on the rise. Recruitment and selection in Japan. The Japanese have absorbed Western technology, science, education and politics while still keeping their unique cultural identity. Traditional practices, hiring of workers and managers into entry level position directly out of college and institution is common. Pay rises and promotions are automatic in the wage system based on seniority, status and are tied to length of the service rather than to job duties or merit. Sushin Koyo is the lifetime employment system. Participation by co-workers in after hours gathering to foster harmony and cooperation is generally expected. Workers take responsibility and then accept blame to protect their superiors from loss to face. Although subordinates know that they can influence decisions, the ultimate decisions comes from the top. The firms are administering complicated tests and other screening devices to select high quality recruits whatever their deficits. The firms are administering complicated tests and other screening devices to select high quality recruits whatever their deficits in academic certification. Their younger workforce is more mobile, less committed to work and the firm. Japanese managers have a strong sense of corporate obligation to provide jobs, income and security. Next country is the Australia. The recruitment system used is significantly more position oriented. Most vacancies are open to external recruitment with selection panels and in some cases recruitment firms being used. The Australian Public Services has measures in place to promote the recruitment of original Australians and people with a disability. These include preferential selection in designated positions, the use of a disability employment service provider, and special cadetship and traineeships aim at promoting the recruitment of native Australians. Agency heads are required to report annually on the effectiveness and outcomes of their workplace diversity programs and to ensure that their programs are reviewed at least every 4 years. China. The employment pattern in China was characterized by a system of unified job allocation, guaranteed lifelong employment and based on welfare, which was to be known as the iron rice bowl policy. Under this system, employees had guaranteed job security, but no right to choose a job freely or move among different units. This system was developed in 1950s under the influence of Soviet management system and Japanese employment practices. Developing market orientation of employment practices is a significant way to sharpen Chinese enterprise competitiveness. So, they have to free their mind, forming new mechanisms and allocate human resources according to market rules. Over 80% of small and medium enterprises in China has moved away generally from rigid allocation of staff by the state departments and engaged in free market selection process. Recruitment and selection in India. Almost all organizations in India are recruiting human resources based on market driven approach. Even public sector organizations are not the exceptions. According to Indian labor laws, new jobs should be properly advertised and a formal process of recruitment should be followed. However, this direction of labor laws is not seriously followed. In Indian companies, particularly in private sector, there is a strong reliance on the recruitment of top level employees based on social contracts and by the adoption of an informal methods. Such top level positions are generally created and filled from family members, friends, relatives and internal loyal employees. Comparative human resource management practices. Training and development. Training constitutes a basic concept in human resource development. It is concerned with developing a particular skill to a desired standard by instruction and practice. Training is a highly useful tool that can bring an employee into a position where they can do their job correctly and effectively. Training is the act of increasing the knowledge and skill of an employee for doing a particular job. Training and development. Now, we are going to discuss United States of America, that how the appraisal process and training and development are followed in the United States of America. Appraisal processes frequently require the input of employees themselves, which often leading to recommendations for future training and career development needs as well as pay decisions. Organizations are becoming smarter with providing training as the average number of training days is increasing, likely due to greater use of e-learning system and the on the job training. The practice of offering employee benefits that exceed statutory requirements had been declining slightly except for a health care insurance. The concentration of trade union members and the percentage of organizations recognizing trade unions have increased slightly. However, perception of trade union influence in organizations remain low. Downward communication is most commonly taking place through electronic means, whereas upward communication is done through supervisors. Next country is the Japan. The employment period is thus not stipulated and the post is assured until mandatory retirement age, which is usually somewhere between 55 and 60 years. Such a regular employee normally does not have specialist skills when he enters, but tends to be trained within the company by being rotated between different jobs and departments. Any labor contract may specify a probation period at the beginning of the employment contract. The probation time is not legally limited, its renewal is also not prohibited by law. Next country is the Germany. Germany makes as much use of performance assessment in human resource decisions as the developed country. Assessment is mandatory for almost all employees and takes the form of a meeting with and written feedback from the immediate superior every 2 years. A broad range of criteria is used, including activities undertaken, timeliness and quality of outputs, improvement of competencies and interpersonal skills. Years of experience, performance appraisals and qualifications are factors in promotion decisions for all grades of public servants. To change between job categories, employees must take an examination and minimum education requirements apply. Openings are placed on a transparent listing which is accessible government wide. The Human Resource Department compiles a short list of candidates. There is systematic use of panels, some use of assessment centers, and the decision of the panel center is binding. Initial training of 1 week's length upon entry into the public service is standard for all the staff members and is differentiated by seniority level. The average length of training received per employee is 3 days per year. Next country is the China. The training of workers in China was highly centralized and narrowly defined in contrast to the Western human resource management notion of planning for long-term staff development. The higher education system in China produced graduates who were narrowly trained and lacked the ability to solve problems at work. Chinese rote learning traditional educational system is unlikely to produce a generation of independent thinkers and doers. Chinese Enterprise Management Association was created to coordinate management education courses with Chinese and foreign institutions from West and East. Further, it has recently been announced that all top level executives now have to undergo training and certification. China has also introduced mandatory training and examinations for all leading officials of enterprises. Training and development in India. In India, the concept of training and development of employees have grown gradually. Indian organizations put strong emphasis on training and development of employees and have invested heavily in training. Expenditure on employee training seems to have increased in Indian organizations. Managers are being trained in number of key areas like performance appraisal, motivation, team building, staff communication, delegation, etc. Indian companies also organize executive development programs. Companies liberally send their executives and employees for training abroad to keep them updated and sometimes to learn specific techniques. Now, there is the fourth base, that is the compensation and benefits for comparative human resource management practices. Compensation means the reward that is received by an employee for the work performed in an organization. It is an important function of human resource management. Employees may receive financial and non-financial compensation for the work performed by them. Financial compensation includes salary, bonus and all the benefits and incentives, whereas non-financial compensation includes awards, rewards, citation, praise, recognition which can motivate the employees towards highest productivity. Compensation and benefits program in China. Recently, China adopted the principle of to each according to his work. Salaries or wages were to be based on a basic wage determined by job level and wage category, and bonuses linked to the success of the enterprise. It was realized that one of the most effective packages in human resource management practices is to link staff salaries directly to their performance in order to increase incentives and improve productivity. So, Chinese enterprise started moving from an egalitarian wage payment system to one that is more individualized. Chinese employees are rewarded on the basis of their age, position and skills. Executives in Chinese enterprises have received increasing pay, enlarging the gap with ordinary employees. Certain benefits and welfare aspects were also included in the pay package. These benefits include accommodation, meals, medical assistance, bonus, subsidies, medical care, food facilities, housing, child care and provisions for pensions and insurance, which includes medical, accident and disability, maternity and unemployment. The Chinese government sought to create a new social security system on July 1, 2011 based on individual employment contracts that would make employers rather than the state primarily responsible for contributions to pensions, unemployment, medical and all these related facilities. In addition, the government established a housing fund designed to help employees who no longer had housing provided for them. In China, all employees including rural migrant workers should covered by the social insurance system. Compensation and benefits in Japan. Japanese employment practice is traditionally founded on lifetime employment. The employee usually remains with one company for entire working life. The average working time as stipulated by law is 40 hours per week and 8 hours per day. These limits may be relaxed for a definite period, which is defined by agreement of the employer and the enterprise trade union, or if such union does not exist, a worker representing a majority of workers. There may be different forms of a flexible working time which are confined by ordinances. Annual leave with pay of the average wages is granted as per law. The worker can claim it only if they report it for work on at least 80% of the total working days. The number of annual leave days is related to the time the worker has already been employed in the enterprise, counting on those years in which the worker reported sufficiently for work. Maternity protection is also provided. During pregnancy and up to 1 year after childbirth, a ban is put on heavy physical work and on work with dangerous materials. Discrimination on the basis of race, creed, gender, social status or family origin is banned already by constitution. Compensation and benefits in Australia. Under the common law, all employees have a contract of employment with their employer. The contractual employment relationship coexists with other state based forms of employment regulation such as awards or certified agreements. The common law remedies for breach of an employment contract are supplemented by concurrently operating federal and state statutory schemes for unfair and unlawful dismissals. The standard working hours in a week in Australia 38 hours. Award, certified agreements and Australian workplace agreements generally contain provisions setting out ordinary hours of work. Full time and part time workers receive at least 4 weeks of paid annual leave each year. Sick leave is granted to most workers under awards or agreement, and some state legislation also sets out minimum entitlements. Maternity leave is available to female employees for a period of up to 12 months and usually unpaid. However, many certified agreements now make provisions for paid maternity leave of up to 12 months duration. The Children Care and Protection Act 1987 prohibit the employment of children under 15 in a limited number of industries and where the child's physical or emotional well-being is put at risk. Legislation at the federal and state levels prohibits both direct and indirect discrimination in employment on a number of grounds. Compensation and benefits in South Africa. It is quite common that employers engage employees for a probationary period which may be negotiated and stipulated in the contract of the employment. After expiry of the probationary period, the employer is entitled to decide whether to retain the service of the employee on a permanent basis or not. The basic conditions of Employment Act sets clearly defined limits on working hours for employees. The working hours provision do also not apply to sales staff who travel to customers and regulate their own hours or to employees who work less than 24 hours per month. The basic condition of Employment Act prescribes a leave period of not less than 21 following days per completed year of employment on full pay. Public holidays are not part of annual leave and may not be encashed. There is also an entitlement to a minimum number of sick leaves on full day. Employees are entitled to maternity leave of not less than 4 months, which is to start from 4 weeks prior to due date of birth and end not less than 6 weeks after birth of the child. Employees are also entitled to make family responsibility leave. An employee who has been employed for longer than 4 months and who works 4 days or more than the same, the employer is entitled to 3 days paid leave during each 12-month leave cycle to discharge family responsibilities. South African law does not prescribe minimum wages through act. Usually wages are fixed by the employer or by collective agreements or by the employee's contract of employment. Then the case of India is there. Typically in public sector organization in India, compensation is determined on the basis of length of service or seniority. In private sector organizations, compensation is determined by considering the performance as major criteria. Seniority alone is no criteria for determining wages and salaries in private enterprises in India, whereas seniority based salaries have all long been a distinct feature of Indian public sector. Indian firms also offer a wide variety of monetary benefits and facilities including bonus, city compensatory allowance, housing allowance, group insurance, medical facilities, schooling, recreational facilities and many more. Many of the benefits are also extended to the employees' families. Incentive schemes offered to white collar Indian staffs are performance related pay, individual bonus, profit sharing and employee share option. Indian labor welfare measures are now being more cooperative role and are less number of protests. The most significant social security laws enacted in India are Workmen Compensation Act, Factory Act, Employee State Insurance Act, Employees Provident Fund Provision Act, the Maternity Benefit Act, the Payment of Gratuity Act, and these are providing the social security and welfare of specific categories of the workers. Then last base for the comparative human resource management practices is the performance appraisal. A performance appraisal is a systematic and objective method of judging the quality of an employee in performing his job and a part of guiding and managing career development. It is the process to obtain, analyze and record the information about the relative worth of an employee to the organization. Performance appraisal is analysis of an employee's recent successes and failures, personal strengths and weaknesses and the stability for promotion or further training. Performance appraisal in United States. Performance appraisal have been used in United States for decades. These appraisals are performed annually and evaluate how the employees are performing their jobs and whether they are improving their learning and technical abilities or not. During evaluation process of executives, appraisers stress upon the ability to do the job, technical ability, management skills, cultural understanding, flexibility, adaptability and creativity. In United States, an executive can be creative and think outside the box for the betterment of the organization. In most of the organizations, a representative from the human resource department done the appraisal and assign a score based on the employee's performance over the previous year. In most of the organizations, appraisal try to focus on the positives and use constructive criticism unless there are frequent problems or issues that need to be discussed. Performance appraisal in China. China is a country where appraisal relies upon individuality and collectivism, and therefore individual and group evaluations are done annually. In the past, employee evaluation in China was based on political affiliation, seniority and harmonious relations, ignoring the actual job responsibilities and performance. After economic reforms in 1978, China adopted Western style evaluation techniques and developments. Input, teamwork, perception of values and evaluation based pay system are becoming the major basis for performance evaluation. Incorporating and rewarding individual input is helping in employee satisfaction and motivation to work harder throughout the year. However, these evaluations still lack of transparency, openness and mutual influence. Then performance appraisal in Germany. Performance evaluation in Germany have been analyzed through an electronic management system which was started in 2007. This system decentralized and individualized performance appraisals. Managers classify the different employees into different categories on the basis of quality, usability, work speed, team fairness and conflict management. Computer assessments are done annually or semi-annually depending on the company. Employees who previously received negative evaluation also undergo for further frequent evaluation. Many employees are not in the favor of using the computer system analysis as it does not provide proper feedback and there is no personal involvement of the employees. Employees think that their co-workers should also be involved in the evaluation process. Federal Ministry of Interiors established a rating scale which is based on a point system. The pay system depends upon the points and score obtained by the employee. In Germany, job satisfaction was positively related to the performance appraisal when monetary benefits were explained. United Kingdom. In United Kingdom, during employee performance evaluation, several stages are involved, but 3 phases are important and these phases are known as reviewing, planning and managing. During the review phase, immediate supervisors analyze and evaluate the work performance of the employee throughout the year and give feedback to the superiors. Supervisors evaluate the skill improvements of the employees as compared to the previous evaluation. The next phase is planning, which involves discussion and developing a plan for improving skills if it is necessary. These improvements may focus on effective work output and on greater efficiency. These expected improvements will be evaluated during next performance evaluation schedule. In final phase of managing, future expectations are explained and discussed the different ways to achieve them. In United Kingdom, performance evaluation is based on face-to-face meeting rather using the technology and more personal evaluations are made with greater participation of employees. Next country is the Japan. In Japan, the performance appraisal system have a great impact on promotion and on the other hand, salary is also affected by age and seniority. Japanese firms focus very little on further development and improving employee skills. In developing communication between supervisors and employee appraisals, reviews are not used. In Japan, the performance appraisal system has the minimum role in determining the wages and salaries of the employees. There are several companies that do not use the performance appraisal system, and many companies do not utilize evaluation at all. Mostly the performance evaluation is based on skills, overall performances, attitudes of the employees, but in case of managers, evaluation their attitudes are not taken into account. Most of the employees complained that performance evaluations in Japan are subjective, unorganized and close minded. Japanese appraisal system do not promote morale and job satisfaction among the employees. However, in recent years, the performance evaluation method related to pay has changed to use performance in salary based decision making rather than focusing on age and seniority as had done in previous years. India. In India, most of the company uses a specific set of guidelines for appraisal, which allow the country to have a common outcome. The performance evaluation is made at all levels of the business, that is from top level managers to the maintenance workers. The performance evaluation system mainly comprises three important areas, which are: first one is the assessment of work output, second personal attributes, and morale and motivation of the employees, and all these provide a chance to grow the individuals and organization also. This new evaluation system forces the managers to make a change in themselves and creating a system of teamwork and empowerment of the workers. India is still developing and most of the business organizations are perfecting their appraisal system. All these developments are creating a drastic change which is beneficial for the managers as well as to the workers. Presently, evaluation system reflects on past behavior and provides an opportunity to the employees to develop their behavior and skills. In short, we can say that in order to maximize cross national management capabilities, there is a need to understand how employees in different national settings respond to similar concepts within their particular functions. An international human resource manager also needs to address the challenges due to cross cultural differences, global competition, language and political differences when posted at international level. Comparative HRM is a systematic method of investigation that seeks to explain the patterns and variations encountered in cross-national human resource management rather than simply described human resource management institutions and practices in different societies. According to comparative human resource management literature, different national business systems arises from differences in specific historical, cultural and institutional heritage in the certain countries. Comparative differences occur due to decisive historical events such as the process of industrialization or due to the legacy of pre-modern forms of social organizations. HR management practices differ between nations due to the presence of specifically national institutions such as education, banking, service or state legal support, etc. Thank you.